Hello BookTube and welcome to Weekly Reads. This Weekly Reads might be a bit busy, will definitely be chaotic, and let's get started. So, I spent Saturday, Sunday, and Monday finishing up The Age of Decadence by Simon Heffer. This is a big history, or big narrative history of Britain from 1880 to 1914. So the last 20 years of Queen Victoria's reign, the entirety of King Edward VII's reign, and the beginning of George V's reign. The book is broken up into roughly three parts. The first part looks at the various social classes. And then the second part gives a bit of an overview of what was going on in Britain by subject. And then the final part looks at the various crises that plagued Britain in the lead up to the First World War, including the revolt of the Lords and the supremacy of the Commons, the labor movement and the militarization of the labor movement, the suffrage crisis, as well as Irish Home Rule. I loved every moment I spent with this book. It was phenomenal. Even though I do have some quibbles with it, when Heffer looks, or when he focuses on Empire and Ireland, he's mostly concerned with British efforts to ameliorate their rule, trying to make their rule more palatable to the subject peoples. He doesn't really go into what the British did to India or Ireland to really give birth to the various nationalist movements. And in a way, he doesn't really do that with the labor movement either. Of how exactly the labor movement became so militarized, and how relations became so relatively toxic in the years before the First World War. Although I'm pretty sure those histories are elsewhere. But I mean, for the most part, I loved every moment I spent with this book, and I do highly recommend it. It is a blast to read. It was an experience that I'm coming to love, taking the time to read really big works of history. So yeah, quite happy, and I'm rather looking forward to picking up Heffer's earlier book on the earlier part of the Victorian period, and hopefully eventually his most recent work, which covers Britain in the First World War, will eventually be available in American market as well. Although I guess maybe if worse comes to worse, book depository. But anyway, really love this book. So I mentioned last week when I did my preview of what I'll be reading this week that I had three options once I finished The Age of Decadence. My intention was to, in the 3 or 4 days, I managed to finish off The Age of Decadence on Monday because I woke up early, and so I read a good chunk before I started work, which was a glorious experience, if not a little bit nerve-wracking. And then I finished it later on when I usually do my weekday reading, or work weekday reading. So I managed to finish it on Monday. I'd originally thought I'd finish it on Tuesday, but yeah. And that was a glorious reading day, I will admit. So I had three candidates for Bell Redemption to read on my docket. First up was Crooked Little Heart by Lamott. Again, this is a family drama about a young girl named Rosie who is a tennis player. She's not necessarily a prodigy, but she's quite good. Who is beginning to go through her teen years and all of the attendant changes and nightmare and what have you that being a teenager entails. And yeah, so that was option one. Option two was Blue Angel by Francine Prose. This is a novel about a creative writing professor who is accused by his most talented student of sexual harassment. And the third one was The Namesake by Jhumpa Lahiri, which is about Indian immigrants to America and the, I think, second generation son who has struggling to come to terms with his Indian identity, his American identity, and his unfortunate first name. So my intention was to read one of these during the work week and then one of the other two over the weekend. I decided to have another go at Crooked Little Heart by Lamott, and I started reading the first few pages, and I didn't want to. I did not want to read this book. And I decided, okay, I'm just not going to read it. I'll bail and basically go, okay, maybe for the moment, I'm just not going to do any Bell Redemption. So I went and pulled all of the bookmarks out of these two, as well as all of the other Bell Redemption candidates I'd put bookmarks in for my December Bell Redemption project, which has been canceled. So I'm not going to be doing that, at least right now. I might change my mind, but I doubt it. So, yeah, set these aside. Boom. So what did I read this past week besides The Age of Descent? The Age of Decadence, I'm sorry. I read some comics. So I read the first two volumes of Marauders. So Marauders is a spin-off of the X-Men. And more specifically, the current age of the X-Men, which is set on the mutant island of Krakoa. Krakoa was originally a mutant island, a sentient living island that served as a villain for the X-Men and various other Marvel heroes. In fact, Krakoa served as the impetus for the second X-Men team. Michael K. Vaughan and Steve Donahue talked about this in their most recent World's Finest Epic Collection team-up. After years and decades of comic book history and continuity and stuff, Krakoa has been reformed and is now basically the homeland for a mutant nation state. All mutants have united, heroes and villains have united under Krakoa. And so there are various spin-off titles that deal with various aspects of Krakoa, various teams responding to different needs. So the Marauders deals with the Hellfire Trading Company and the politics within that. So the Hellfire Trading Company is a spinoff of the Hellfire Club. Again, a longtime X-Men villain team of incredibly wealthy mutant industrialists and businessmen and women who want to take over the world. The group is led by the White Queen, Emma Frost, who is overseeing the legitimate delivery of Krakoan medicines to countries that Krakoa has diplomatic relations with. The Black King, Sebastian Shaw, is overseeing the black market, which is delivery of those drugs to countries that Krakoa does not have diplomatic relations with, and in fact have quite hostile relations. And the Red Queen, Kate Pride, leads the Marauder ship, and her task is to travel the world to rescue mutants who are incapable of traveling to Krakoa because of their government's either being incredibly anti-mutant or incredibly anti-mutant and incredibly exploitative of mutants or of their mutant populations. So the main antagonists of this run are the Hellfire Brats. So a few years ago, during the schism in which Cyclops and Wolverine went to blows over the direction of the X-Men, this schism was facilitated by a new faction of the Hellfire Club. This time led not by mutants, but by a cadre of hyper-intelligent, sociopathic preteens. And yes, it's as ridiculous as it sounds. Personally, I loathe these brats. They're just terrible villains. Terrible. The only reason why they get away with half the poo they pull is because the writers let them. But anyway, so they've resurfaced as Homines Verendi, using the titles of the Hellfire Club, much as the Hellfire Trading Company is too. They've partnered with a Taiwanese anti-mutant businesswoman who claims that her husband has been kidnapped by mutants. In actual fact, he's a mutant cultist and she's imprisoned him. Why exactly this did not result in, depending upon which one of them is actually in charge, anyway, it's confusing. And then of course, Sebastian Shaw is being his manipulative self. So I quite liked most of the two volumes. I read the first two volumes on Kindle Unlimited, and I quite liked it. I did have a few issues. Obviously, I loathe the Hellfire Brats with passion. So, but my biggest issue, I think, is there are some problems with characterization. Some of the characters don't quite read right. Particularly Christian Frost, the older brother of Emma Frost. He seems a little too British at times, when he should really be acting more Bostonian. And also a big sort of plot thread in the story is that Kate Pride cannot interact with Krakoa. She cannot pass through the Krakoan gates. Krakoan vines entrap her. She can't phase through. Her power is intangibility with attendant technological disruption. The problem with that is that, to a certain extent, another character in supporting character, Shinobu Shaw, the son of Sebastian Shaw, has rather similar powers. He can manipulate his own density to where he can also become intangible. But whereas Kate Pride has issues with Krakoa. Shinobu doesn't. So there was a bit of a, like, why is it not working for her when it works for him? And it's, well, in these two volumes at least, it's not explained. Of course, Shinobu also doesn't use his powers, so yeah. Maybe the intention is that the reader's not going to pay attention to that or ask that question. I don't know. Anyway, but for the most part, I did like Marauders Volumes 1 and 2. The writer was Gerry Duggan. So then I read some manga. I've been holding off on reading some of the manga I've collected over the past few months. And in fact, I'm kind of maybe regretting having collected these volumes. In part, particularly for the series I'm going to talk about. Part of that is that I'm having difficulty finding the next volume at a reasonable price. I mean, $249 is no. Anyway, so I read volumes 5 and 6 of Magi, The Labyrinth of Magic by Shinobu Ohtaka. In these volumes, it continues the Balbad arc, in which Aladdin and Margiana are looking for Alibaba, and they find him in his home city of Balbad, where he's taken up with some rebels. At the end of Volume 4, Margiana kidnapped Alibaba, and he's now telling them what happened, his life story. Over the course of these two volumes, the story progresses. Alibaba is taken to meet his older brother, even though he looks younger. And said brother is horrific. We learn that the Ku Empire is making moves on Balbad, that the king is basically about to sell his people into slavery, and just things progress from there. We're introduced properly to Judar, who will be a major recurring antagonist in the series, and there's some fights with the Ku Empire. Alibaba goes to confront his brother and enacts a coup, and I don't know. I mean, I was rather disappointed with these two volumes. I'm pretty sure a lot of that has to do with me just not being motivated, or I don't know. I mean, in a way, I like Alibaba, I think, as more unscrupulous, as more of a trickster, rather than being a more traditional shonen hero. But I could be wrong, and I might come back to these volumes eventually and really enjoy them. We shall see. Where do I put you? Oh, over here. And then I also read Maximum Carnage, which is a Spider-Man event from about 30 years ago that I have wanted to read for ages. Also on my Kindle Unlimited, which pretty much the only thing I will read online are comic books. But anyway, so Maximum Carnage features Carnage, the symbiote son of Venom, who's possessed or taken as a host a human serial killer. This villain then breaks out of a superpowered mental institution, frees another patient who's named Shriek, whose powers are sonic and psionic, and they pretty much run amok, gathering around them a sort of family with Carnage as the father, Shriek as the mother, and Doppelganger, a twisted kind of clone of Spider-Man, Demogoblin, which is a demon that had possessed Hobgoblin, another Spider-Man villain, for a few years, and Carrion, a weird biological virus creation thing that can kill people with a touch. So these villains run amok, largely with the goal, Carnage is part of hunting down Venom and killing him, and Spider-Man 2. And this sort of rampage brings out a number of superheroes who live in New York City. Not including, I mean, obviously Spider-Man, because it is a Spider-Man event, but other characters include Cloak and Dagger, the Black Cat, obviously Venom, who's pretty much the deuteragonist, Captain America, Deathlock, Iron Fist, and Morbius, as well as, I think, Nighthawk or Deathhawk. Anyway, it's like a huge number of superheroes who come in to help fight Carnage and his family. And for the most part, I actually quite liked this. I mean, it's quite long. It's 14 parts. The art's not always consistent or good. Some of the subplots, I think, are a bit weak. Particularly J. Jonah Jameson. Oh, Lord. But I mean, for the most part, I enjoyed it. I've wanted to read this crossover for a while because when I was younger, there was actually a video game adaptation of this arc called Maximum Carnage that I don't know if we owned it or if I routinely checked it out from the video store, but I would try to play it and constantly and didn't make it too far. As much as I love video games, I'm not very good at playing them. In fact, I actually want some video game history. I wonder if there are any. Anyway, sorry for the tangent. So, yeah, I quite enjoyed it, and don't know if I'll be getting to any comics anytime soon, because my docket for November obviously is quite packed. But anyway, so what will I be reading this next week? So this weekend is a bit of a struggle because obviously I've got 2 days of October left, and I'll be starting Nonfiction November on Monday, the 1st of November. So I have 3 options for this weekend's reading. The first is The Answers by Catherine Lacy. This is a novel about a young woman who I think enters into some form of paid companionship, relationship, or something. I picked this up for my America 20 project, and I haven't gotten around to it yet, even though I've since abandoned the America 20 project. I did mention in my end of the year book tag that I kind of wanted to get to this book, and to be honest, I don't know why I said that. I think I just popped into my head, so maybe I'll get to it, maybe I won't. I don't know. We shall see. And then I thought maybe read a fantasy for before New Worlds in November. And so I was thinking maybe 16 Ways to Defend a Walled City by K.J. Parker. This is I think, a more humorous fantasy in which a con man worms his way into leading the defense of a city and eventually becoming, I guess, the leader of the city or even an emperor. And I've had this for a year or two, I think, and haven't gotten to it, so probably will time I get to it. But again, I'm not having much success with fiction lately, so maybe I could start Nonfiction November weekend early and go with one of the books I just hauled this afternoon, and that would be In Search of the Phoenicians by Josephine Quinn. This is a look at the Phoenicians and what we know about them, and whether or not what we know about them is maybe not entirely accurate or existent. And so this is likely what I will be reading this weekend, the more I think about it. So yeah, definitely probably will be reading this, and I will report back what I think. Although this is not a terribly long book, so I don't know if it'll take the entire weekend or not. And if it doesn't, then I'll find something else. I don't know if it'll be some poetry, maybe something shorter. I don't know. We shall see. Because I'm also feeling in the mood for some Agatha Christie. I haven't read Agatha Christie in months. So, and then of course, with November rolling around, I will be starting Nonfiction November, and the first book on my docket there is Imagine Life by James Trefil and Michael Summers. This is a look at how alien life might evolve and survive in environments that for humans would be quite hostile. I've read it before, and I'm quite looking forward to rereading it. So that will definitely, obviously, is on the docket for next week. So next week is going to be a bit chaotic, video-wise. I have a doctor's appointment, and my brother and his family are moving. The text alerts you probably are hearing is probably from my sister-in-law. So they are buying a house, and they are going to be closing next week. So I will likely be watching the 4 Children of the Apocalypse while my brother and sister-in-law move. So that might be disrupting videos for most of the week. I think Monday will be good because it closes on Tuesday. So if I have a Monday, so I don't know if I might do a tag, like my tag on Monday or not. I don't know. Tuesday might be a bit of, well, no. I should be able to get Jim, the latest, the X tag, I should be able to get up on Tuesday, because we'll be watching the kids later. And that. So Wednesday and Thursday might be an issue with the kids, particularly Wednesday. Thursday, there will be no video on Thursday because I have a doctor's appointment, and it's possible I may have to walk up there. One of the advantages of having the clinic and at the same time I can walk up there. And if that's the case, then I definitely won't be able to make a video, because when I make a video, I will be walking up there. So, and then of course on Friday, I should be able to do weekly reads and maybe try to be a bit happier because it is also my birthday. So anyway, is there anything else I want to talk about? No. Well, there are a few things I did want to talk about, but we're approaching 30 minutes, so I'm going to go ahead and end it here. Thank you, BookTube. Have a great weekend, and, well, evening and weekend, and I will see you on Monday, hopefully. So until then, BookTube, thank you, and stay safe.